plastic. You really can't get away from it here in Taiwan, can you?
You know, it feels like it's everywhere.
I mean, just think about bubble tea, your classic bubble tea. So much plastic, right?
Oh, yeah. The cup, the lid, the straw.
Sometimes even that little plastic film they seal it with before the lid.
Huh.
And then maybe a plastic bag to carry it.
Exactly.
Uh,
And then you've got, like, the convenience stores.
right. Grabbing a quick lunch from 7-Eleven or Family Mart. It's always, always wrapped in plastic. Bento boxes, onigiri.
Everything's sealed up. And food delivery.
Don't even get me started. It's like a mountain of single-use containers every single time. It just makes you think, Taiwan is so advanced in many ways, but
Yeah.
are we maybe using a bit too much plastic?
Well, that's really what we want to dig into today. It's not just about seeing all this plastic around us.
Okay.
We want to explore what it actually means. The impact on the environment, definitely, but also, crucially, on our own health.
Right, the health connection.
Yeah, they're really linked. And since we're chatting in English, we thought it'd be useful to pick out some key English words related to all this as we go.
Great idea. Okay, so let's unpack that convenience thing first. Taiwan and convenience. They just go hand in hand, don't they?
They really do. It's a huge part of the culture.
Need something fast. Convenience store. Solved. But like we said, nearly everything in there is plastic wrapped.
Yep, the bentos, the snacks, drinks.
Even in traditional markets sometimes, you see fruit pre-cut and put on a plastic tray with cling film.
Right, trying to keep things neat or hygienic, perhaps.
It's all about making things easy, maybe keeping them looking fresh. But the sheer amount of plastic, why do you think convenience got so tied up with using this much plastic here?
That's a really good question. I think part of it is probably historical, an emphasis on hygiene, maybe, and definitely efficiency. Plastic packaging feels clean. It extends shelf life.
Which is good in a fast-paced society.
Exactly. Yeah, and, well, economically, single-use plastics were often just cheaper for producers, for consumers, at least in the immediate sense. Maybe the systems for, like, widespread reusable options weren't always there or weren't incentivized enough early on.
Okay. Now here's a stat that really made me stop and think.
Oh, yeah.
Get this. Taiwan uses roughly 3 billion plastic straws a year.
3 billion? Just straws?
Just straws. Apparently, if you laid them all end to end, they'd stretch around the Earth almost twice.
Wow. That's hard to even picture. That really puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. One little item. Massive scale.
And that number connects directly to the environmental cost.
Yeah.
Because plastic, well, it doesn't just disappear like, say, an apple core.
Right. It sticks around.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years for most plastics to even start breaking down. And when they do break down, they don't vanish. They just break up into smaller and smaller pieces.
Microplastics.
Exactly. These tiny fragments we call microplastics.
And these aren't just litter, right? They actually cause harm.
Precisely. They get everywhere. Into our water systems, into the soil where our food grows, even into the air we breathe.
Into the air. Wow.
Yeah. Now, Taiwan does have a pretty well-known recycling system, which is, definitely a positive step.
True. The recycling trucks are quite iconic.
They are. But it's important to remember, not all plastic can actually be recycled easily, or sometimes at all.
Ah, okay.
A lot still ends up being burned, which causes air pollution, or sometimes it gets exported. So the problem might just be moved somewhere else. Do we know much about the different recycling rates? Like, are drink bottles recycled more than, say, food wrappers?
That's a good point. My understanding is, yes, those PT bottles, like for water or soda, they tend to have a higher recycling rate. They're easier to process.
Okay.
But the flimsy films, the mixed plastics, that's much harder and often less economical to recycle. That seems to be where a big part of the challenge is.
Right. And being an island, Taiwan faces a really direct threat from marine pollution.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plastic waste finds its way into rivers and then inevitably out into the ocean. And that's just devastating for marine life. Fish, turtles, birds, they mistake plastic for food.
We've all seen those awful pictures.
Yeah, it can lead to starvation, internal injuries. It's truly tragic.
It really is. And remember that discovery? A plastic bag found at the very bottom of the Mariana Trench.
Oh, I remember hearing about that. Unbelievable.
The deepest point on Earth. It just shows how far this problem reaches. Nowhere seems safe from it.
It really does. And this brings us to the other side of the coin. It's not just the environment. There's more and more research looking at the health risks for us.
Okay, so how does plastic affect our health?
Well, scientists are actually finding microplastics inside our bodies now.
Inside us, where?
In our bloodstream, in our lungs, even, alarmingly, in placentas.
And placentas, oh wow, how are they getting in?
It seems like the main ways are through what we eat and drink, so contaminated food and water, and also through breathing them in from the air. And it looks like some common habits might make it worse, like heating food in plastic containers in the microwave.
Oh, lots of people do that with leftovers or convenience store meals.
Exactly. But doing that can cause chemicals in the plastic, like BPA is a well-known one, to sort of leach out into the food.
Leach out, you mean they transfer from the plastic to the food?
Yeah, essentially.
Hmm.
And these chemicals, well, they've been linked to potential health problems, things like hormonal imbalances, issues with fertility, maybe even cardiovascular diseases.
So that quick microwave meal might have a hidden downside.
It's certainly something to think about. And worryingly, some studies have now found microplastics in places like the brain and even in reproductive organs.
The brain, seriously.
Yeah, the long-term effects. We're still figuring that out.
Yeah.
Researchers are working hard on it, but finding these plastics in such sensitive areas is, well, it's definitely raising concerns. What kind of studies are looking into this long-term stuff?
From what I've read, a lot of research is tracking how different types of microplastics move through the body, what they do to our cells, how they affect different organs. It's complex, trying to figure out, at what level they become really harmful.
Absolutely. And remember that study from a few years back, 2019, I think? It got a lot of headlines.
The one about eating a credit card's worth of plastic?
That's the one. About 5 grams a week, they estimated. Now, some later research questioned that exact number, maybe refined the estimate.
Okay.
But the main point, I think, still stands. The sheer amount of plastic we use means we are taking in a significant amount. And more recent studies finding microplastics in human testicles and brain tissue just keep highlighting how serious this could be.
Right. So, okay, it's everywhere. It's bad for the planet, potentially bad for us. What are some of those daily habits, maybe the less obvious ones, that are adding to this problem?
Yeah, there's some surprising ones. Think about someone who gets a bubble tea every day. That's a common thing here, right?
Very
That one habit alone adds up to so many single-use cups, lids, straws, month after month.
We already mentioned microwaving and plastic. What about your kitchen sponge?
My sponge.
As you wash dishes, those synthetic sponges actually shed tiny plastic fibers down the drain.
I had no idea. Wow. What else?
Laundry is a big one, surprisingly.
Laundry.
Yeah, lots of our clothes are made of things like polyester, nylon,
Hmm.
synthetic fabrics. Every time you wash them, they release thousands of tiny plastic microfibers into the water.
Oh, right. Microfibers.
Exactly. They go down the drain, through the water treatment plants, often ending up in rivers and oceans. Then there were microbeads.
Ah, those tiny plastic balls in face scrubs and toothpaste.
Yeah, thankfully they're less common now due to bans, but for years those were just getting washed straight into the environment.
Okay.
And now, with things like the pandemic and the rise of food delivery, think about disposable masks, wet wipes, and all that plastic cutlery they automatically include.
Yeah, you often get forks and spoons even when you eat at home.
Exactly. It all ends up very quickly. It does feel a bit overwhelming thinking about all these sources, but there's an upside, right? We can do things about it.
Absolutely. That's the crucial part. Individual actions, even small ones, really do make a difference when lots of people do them.
Okay, so what kind of things?
Simple swaps, really. Like bringing your own reusable cup for that bubble tea or coffee.
Instead of the single-use one?
Exactly. Using cloth towels or reusable wipes instead of disposable ones for cleaning. Storing food in glass containers instead of plastic. Choosing clothes made from natural fibers like cotton or wool when you can.
Those sound doable, little changes.
They are. And they really do reduce the amount of plastic being produced and discarded.
And I heard some places in Taiwan are actually encouraging this.
Yes, that's a great development. Lots of bubble tea shops, even some convenience stores, now offer a small discount if you bring your own cup.
Oh, that's brilliant. A little incentive.
Yeah, it's a nudge in the right direction, helping make the sustainable choice the easier, or at least slightly cheaper choice.
Okay, this seems like a good moment to maybe pause and think about some of that English vocabulary we've been using. It's really helpful for talking about these issues.
Definitely. Let's recap a few key terms.
First up, we mentioned straws right at the beginning. Those thin tubes for drinking, often plastic. So you could say, many cafes are switching from plastic straws to paper or bamboo ones.
Good example. Then there's takeout. That's food you buy from a restaurant to eat somewhere else. Like, we got takeout last night and it came with a lot of plastic containers.
And closely related is single-use plastic. That term describes any plastic item made to be used just once and then thrown away.
Right, like plastic cutlery, coffee stirrers, bags. A sentence might be, reducing our reliance on single-use plastic is essential for the environment.
We talked a lot about microplastics. Remember, those are the tiny, tiny plastic fragments.
Yep. So, microplastics have been found in Arctic ice and deep-sea sediment.
Wow. Okay, a more hopeful word. Biodegradable. This means something can break down naturally without causing harm.
Yes, like some companies are developing biodegradable packaging alternatives.
And recyclable. That means a material can be collected and reprocessed into new things.
But remember, not all plastic is easily recyclable. You might need to check the label. Is this yogurt pot recyclable in our area?
Good point. We also talked about how plastic takes ages to decompose, which means to break down or decay.
Right. It takes hundreds of years for a plastic bottle to fully decompose.
And with apps like Uber Eats and Food Panda, food delivery is a huge part of life now, the service of bringing meals to you.
The convenience of food delivery often comes with an environmental cost in terms of packaging.
So the solution often involves using reusable items, things you can use again and again.
Exactly. Reusable shopping bags, coffee cups, and water bottles are great ways to reduce waste.
And finally, the core problem we discussed, overuse, using too much of something.
Yeah. The overuse of plastics is a major global challenge we need to address.
That's a really useful set of words. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, Taiwan is known for being so innovative, so efficient.
Absolutely, in so many areas.
Maybe it's time we really applied that same drive to becoming a leader in sustainability, too, tackling this plastic challenge head on.
I completely agree. And it starts with us, doesn't it? Each of us making slightly different choices, being more mindful in our daily routines. It all adds up. We can reduce how much plastic we use, protect our health, and help keep Taiwan beautiful.
So here's a challenge for everyone listening. Just pick one thing this week, one new habit to cut down on plastic.
Yeah, make it manageable.
And maybe it's saying no thanks to the plastic cutlery with your delivery. Maybe it's remembering your reusable cup every single day, just one thing.
Every little action genuinely helps build momentum.
And if you take on the challenge, let us know. Share what you're doing. Maybe tag us at Taiwan Tea Time. It would be great to see what changes people are making.
Let's build a bit of a community around this. We can definitely do this.
Because when it comes down to it, together, let's cut the plastic, not the fun.